All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to PPA 500. We have 6 folks with us right now. We have an enrollment of 13, so I'm sure we'll have several more people joining us along the way, hopefully. But since it is 4 o'clock and you are here and I am here, I thought we'd go ahead and be punctual and get going. So my name is Dr. Powell, and I'm the instructor for PPA 500, Foundations of Public Policy and Administration. As you know, PPA 500 is the introductory course into the MPA program. So it's very much of a survey-oriented course where we introduce you to the discipline of public administration, talk about some of the ways in which we study phenomena in public administration, talk about where public administration, the public sector fit within the world of American government, and basically just give you a good footing and foundation for them moving into future courses in the MPA program. So what I'd like to do is just talk a bit. First, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll talk a bit about the class. We'll go through the syllabus. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to go onto the campus site and take a look at the syllabus, but we'll go through the syllabus, make sure we understand what the course is about and all the assignments that we're going to be doing and when everything is due and all the topics that we'll be covering. And we'll do that in the first half of class tonight. Then we'll take a brief, probably about 10-minute break. And then the second half of class, we will go over some of the information that you probably received from the orientation session with Dr. Matthews. Just reiterate some of that information, talk about some of the policies and procedures in the program, make sure that everyone is feeling good about the MPA program and where you'll be going and what you'll be doing over the next couple of years. Then I'll also like to introduce you to the mission of the program, talk about some of the public sector values that underlie the program as well, and have a discussion about NASPA accreditation because we are a nationally accredited MPA program, and we are at a very important juncture in our accreditation cycle this year in that our accreditation period ends in June of 2023, this year, our 7-year accreditation. And so we're currently going through the process of reaccreditation for another 7-year accreditation. So I'll talk a bit about accreditation, what it means, and some of the ways that you may be involved in those accreditation efforts coming up in the next couple of months. So that's what we are looking at for tonight. I think we'll probably be able to have kind of an early night tonight. So I don't think we'll use up all of the time, but we'll probably be done around 6 or somewhere around there. Okay, I see now that we have 10 folks who have joined us. So let's see, we have Anthony, Danny, David, Helena, Jessica, Jules, Letitia, Nancy, Dan, and Wendy, and Luciano. Okay, great, we have 11. Okay, we're almost everyone's here. So let me tell you a little bit about the nature of the course. I'll tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here and doing this, and just some introductory type of information to get us started. Again, my name is Dr. Powell, and this is my 22nd year on faculty here in the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration at Long Beach. Prior to coming here, I taught for 5 years, 1 year at Florida Gulf Coast University in their MPA program, and I started my career teaching for 4 years in the political science department at Eastern Illinois University. So overall, this is my 27th year teaching at the graduate level, public administration, as well as a little bit of political science at some other schools earlier on. In addition to my teaching, I also do some research, do a lot of research in assessment of student learning outcomes, put together the assessment system that you'll become very familiar with throughout your time here in this program. I've also served as a local elected official, served 6 years on a local school board, really afforded me the opportunity to take a lot of these topics and concepts that we talked about in the classroom and apply them in the quote unquote real world of public administration and governance. In addition to serving as board president, I also served as the president of a joint finance authority where I had the opportunity to participate in a lot of the refinancing of general obligation bonds. So I've got some practical experience that goes along with the concepts and theories that we cover here in the classroom. So that's basically me. Let me talk to you a bit about the course and make sure everyone is familiar with the way this course is going to operate. This course is a hybrid course. It's a first half hybrid, meaning that we only meet for the first half of the semester. So we start our meetings tonight. Our final meeting will then be on March 15th. And then on March 15th, everything is done. All the assignments are turned in. and the class is then finished. The reason why we've done this is we offer hybrid courses so that students can essentially get 2 courses done in the time it would normally take to do 1 course. So we have first half hybrids, such as this course. Then we have second half hybrids that start on March 22nd or 23rd, whatever date that is, and then go through the rest of the semester. So once you have completed this course, if you want to take a second half hybrid, we have a few of those on the schedule that you can take as well. We've been using those hybrid courses now since about 2007. I developed a hybrid approach with a former faculty member who has since retired. They've become very popular, and so now you'll notice as you go through the program and you register every semester, you'll probably see more and more of those first and second half hybrid courses that are going to be offered to you. The way in which you can accelerate your progress towards your degree gives you a little bit more flexibility as well. So in addition to being a first half hybrid course being done on March 15th, we are also an online synchronous course, which means that, as you already know, I'm sure, we meet on Wednesday evenings at 4 o'clock from tonight all the way through March 15th. So we have 8 scheduled Zoom sessions. And then in addition to those real-time synchronous sessions, you'll then have some Canvas essays that you'll be working on for some of the weeks as kind of an asynchronous component as well. But since this is a synchronous online course and there are only 2 sections of PPA 500 offered this semester, one on Tuesday night and then this class we have here tonight, both of those sections are offered only as online synchronous courses. So university policy says that if that's the only modality in which a course is offered, which that's the case this semester for 500, then the university says that students do not have to turn on their cameras. So whether or not you want to use your camera is completely up to you. And also for privacy reasons, students do not have to list their full name in the classroom. So if you would prefer just to put your first name and last initial, that's also acceptable because this is the only modality. You really didn't have a choice of taking this class on campus this semester. So just to let you know that those are the university policies that afford you some privacy in terms of not needing to use your camera if you care not to. But I do encourage you to participate in the class sessions. You can participate either through using your microphone. You can also participate through the use of text chat. And if you haven't opened it up yet, you can click on the chat icon, open up the text chat box. I keep the text chat box open throughout the entire class session, and I multitask as I'm talking and we're covering information. I keep an eye on text chat. So if you want to participate through text chat as well, that's also an opportunity for you to participate. So that's kind of the nature of this class. We're meeting every Wednesday at 4 o'clock through March 15th through Zoom. In terms of the syllabus has been available for a while, so hopefully you've taken a look at it. My contact information is on the syllabus there. The best way to contact me is by far email. I am on campus and off campus this semester, and so it's much easier to get a hold of me via email. I have my emails pushed to my phone, and so I will get you a response very quickly, usually within about 10 to 12 hours. At the most, you'll get a response. Sometimes you get a response within 2 or 3 minutes. So email is by far the best way to contact me if you have any issues or have any questions or need any clarifications on the course or any of the course material. So office hours, I'm flexible with office hours. I have them listed on there as Wednesdays from 2 to 4, so before class. If you need to contact me, again, send me an email. Most issues we can deal with through email. If it's a weightier issue or something of more significance, if we need to set up a Zoom meeting, we can also do that as well. But I think most things get handled pretty easily through email. As I go through the syllabus and talk about the course tonight, feel free, if you have any questions, either flag me down or put them in text chat, and I'm happy to answer questions as we move along. So this is PPA 500, and I realize that there are some folks in the course who are not enrolled in the NPA program. You're enrolled in other graduate programs. And so I'll talk as we go through the syllabus about some provisions we can make for you for some of the assignments that are kind of NPA specific assignments, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So this is the introductory course into the MPA program, which by definition means we are a survey-based course. There are no prerequisites for this course. There are no expectations of a priori knowledge that you have to have before you come into this course. But one of the things we did do as a faculty a few years ago is we revisited the content of this course. So if you know some folks who went through the program maybe 5 or 10 years ago, their version of 500 that they took will be much different than this version of 500. Because as a faculty, we sat down and we realized that we have people coming into this course and into the MPA program from a variety of different backgrounds and undergraduate majors. You know, it's not uncommon for us to have engineering students, people with undergraduate degrees in microbiology and chemistry and anthropology and sociology and psychology and criminal justice and history, and really just about any academic discipline works for the MPA degree. So since we have so many people coming in with different undergraduate degrees, I think that we were assuming that everyone came in with a good working knowledge of American government. But the fact of the matter is, I know a lot of folks have not had American government in their undergraduate training, or if they have, maybe it was several years ago. And understanding American government is so essential to understanding the discipline of public administration that we decided to revise the course content to make this course much more focused on, number one, American government, the role that public administration plays in American government, and the discipline of public administration. So rather than just going through and giving you kind of a sampler plate of all the other courses you'll be taking in the program like we used to do, now we really want to make this course about the discipline of public administration and what it means to be a public servant, what it means to work in the public sector. So as you'll see, as we go through the syllabus, the topics are different than what they used to be, and that we spend more time focusing on the foundational aspects of American government, more time talking about the discipline of public administration, more time talking about the unique accountability requirements of being a public servant and dealing with public money and public resources, the importance of managing personnel and managing financial resources that belong to the public as opposed to belonging to the government. And so you'll see the topics are much more about the discipline and practice of public administration. You'll see that we've got 4 main course objectives listed in the syllabus: comply with the requirements of the MPA program and its policies. And again, we'll go through a rehashing, if you will, of some of that orientation information that you received earlier. Articulate the basic concepts of American government and political institutions. We'll spend a good bit of time next week and the week after that talking about the basics of American government. Apply the major theories and themes of public policy administration. We are very much about application, not only in this class, but in the entire MPA program. And I'll tell you right now, I tell all my classes, I have a favorite question and a favorite answer. And my favorite question is always, so what? So what? So we're going to learn about classic organization theory. So we're going to learn about different budget formats and different funds that governments use. We're going to learn about different ways in which we manage human resources. Question that becomes, well, for what purpose? Are we just learning theories and concepts, or are we learning theories and concepts for a reason? And the reason is to apply it in practical public administration settings. So I'll ask throughout the course, well, okay, we know this, we've learned this theory, well, so what? How can we apply this theory in the public sector? And then my favorite answer is one that really frustrates a lot of folks. And my favorite answer is, it depends. Because everything in public administration is certainly contextual. There is no one right or wrong answer. There's no best answer to every single situation. It really depends upon the situation. And our goal is to be able to learn how to take the theories and concepts and apply them appropriately in appropriate settings and situations. So you'll see as we talk about some of the assignments, and a lot of the assignments, there are not right or wrong answers. It's a matter of how well you can justify that your answer is the appropriate answer for this given situation, for this given scenario. All right, then the final one, articulate the basic elements of the major subfields in public administration. In this program, we have 5 core content areas. We have budgeting and finance, human resource management, organization theory and behavior, policy analysis, and research methods, otherwise known as we call it program evaluation. And so those are the 5 basic core content areas that you'll be taking your required courses in, and hopefully will give you a little insight into some of the things that you will be learning across those 5 core content areas. Now, as I mentioned, the nature of this course, the course is conducted online through Zoom. We meet on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock from tonight through March 15th. I do not grade on attendance or participation. I assume that you will be here unless there's some really pressing conflict. I know sometimes people work in cities or work for other government agencies that will on occasion have meetings on Wednesdays, which may make it difficult for you to attend class. All of these sessions are recorded, and so I will record all the sessions, and then I will place a link in our Canvas site the morning after our session. So by Thursday morning, I'll have the link there. So in case you have to miss class, you can always go back and review that recording. I do encourage you to be in class because we will cover material on Wednesday nights that may not be covered in the textbooks. I sometimes take a different approach than what the textbook authors take. So it's important for you to be here and to be able to participate throughout our class sessions. But if for some reason you cannot, you always have that recording that you can fall back upon. I do not, again, grade on attendance. I do not grade on participation. So that's completely up to you. I do know that if you are in the NPA program in future courses, some instructors do grade on participation and attendance. So always be careful to read that syllabus before the course begins and know what the instructor's expectations are. We'll skip on down to required textbooks. There are 2 required textbooks for this class. Politics of the Administrative Process by Don Kettle. Don's textbook is a good basic textbook that we'll use as supplemental type of information. I anticipate that you're reading the chapters in the Kettle textbook. It doesn't mean we are going to cover the same information on Wednesday nights. I will cover different information, cover it from a little bit different perspective and a little bit different angle. That's why being here or at least watching the recordings is important for success in the class. But that's our basic textbook. Then our second textbook is really a collection of classical articles in the discipline of public administration, Shaffertz and Hyde Classics of Public Administration. This is an important book because what I like to do is I like to have you read these classical articles yourself and form your own opinions and perspectives on those articles. It's one thing to sit here on Wednesday and listen to me talk about Max Weber or Frederick Taylor or Graham Allison, but it's another thing for you to read the article and then develop your own opinion of that article. So I really want you to have that firsthand exposure to these classical articles. It's also important to note that some of these articles from the classics text that we are covering here in 500, you will cover again in some future courses in the NPA program. So if you're looking at which textbook to hold on to maybe throughout your time in the program, the Classics of Public Administration textbook is probably a good one to hold on to because you will revisit some of those articles later on. So those are our 2 textbooks. I know textbooks are very expensive. Textbooks are way too expensive. I really hope that we continue this movement toward open source textbooks. I know there are some in American government, but there are very few in public administration. So since they are so expensive, if you can get an older edition of the textbook, save yourself some money, that's absolutely fine with me, as long as the content of the textbook matches what you are reading for the class. And that's especially true for the classics text. So you might be able to get a classics textbook, 1 or 2 editions old for pennies on the dollar, but make sure that the articles that are assigned in the syllabus appear in that version of that classics text, because sometimes Shaffertz and Hyde, when they come out with a new edition, they'll take out some articles and put in some new articles. So just make sure you match up your edition with the articles we're reading for the course. Evaluation criteria. So what will you be doing and how will it be evaluated? You essentially have 5 criteria for your evaluation in this course. First, you will have a midterm and a final assessment. Now, I usually don't call them exams, I call them assessments. They are not timed in nature, they're not done in class. You will have 2 weeks to work on both the midterm as well as the final assessment. I already have them loaded into our Canvas page. I have not made them visible yet. I will make each one of those visible 2 weeks before their assigned due date. But let me tell you why they're assessments and not exams. Exams, in my opinion, are not that practical for a graduate level program and a professional program like the MPA. What I think is much more practical and much more useful is to afford you the opportunity to apply concepts and theories to realistic scenarios from the public sector. So on both the midterm and the final assessment, I will construct or have constructed 5 scenarios on each of those assessments. And then there'll be 2 questions related to each of those 5 scenarios. So 5 scenarios, a total of 10 questions. What your job will be is you will need to take the information from class and apply that information appropriately to address that scenario. Now, the scenario that I write will be a relatively brief scenario, might be 1 or 2 paragraphs, laying out a situation going on oftentimes in a city government. So, here is a city that is struggling to get its budget done on time and struggling to avoid running a deficit. So, given these situations in that city, what budget format would you recommend and why would you recommend that budget format? And later on, we'll talk about different budget formats used in the public sector. You'll have all the information you need in order to pick one of those budget formats for that question. But your response will be evaluated based upon your ability to justify your response. So you say, well, a performance-based budget is the most appropriate budget in this scenario, and this is why it is the most appropriate. So you'll be evaluated on your justification. There's not necessarily one right answer. You might say a performance-based budget makes the most sense. You might say a program-based budget makes the most sense. As long as you justify your answer and you convince me that your answer is appropriate, then you will do well and you'll certainly get all the points. So it's all based upon, again, this whole it depends answer. It depends upon the situation. There's no one best answer to any of these questions. So 5 scenarios on each of the midterm as well as the final, and you'll have 2 weeks to work on those. If you want to call it open book, you can call it open book in that you can use all the material from the textbooks, you can use all the material from our Wednesday night sessions. All that material is available and at your disposal to use to answer the questions on the midterm and the final. So that's one main criteria, your assessments. Then another criteria is what we call the initial skills self-assessment. Now, the initial skills self-assessment is part of our student learning outcomes assessment system that we created about 15 years ago, I think it was. I'm trying to remember, it's been so long. I think it's about 15 years ago. And the purpose of the initial skills self-assessment is that here in your first course in the program, your PPA 500 course, we want you to give us a self-assessment of your skills and your experience across several important core areas of the MPA program. And let me go ahead and just share that initial skills self-assessment with you. You may have already seen it up on our site, but let me just go ahead and share it. So, okay, you should be able to see it, initial skills self-assessment. If you can't see it, please let me know, but this is the initial skills self-assessment. Should be a really quick type of assignment to do. It consists of 3 parts. In the first part of the initial skills self-assessment, you will be giving us an ordinal ranking of how much you think you already know about each of these salient areas of the MPA program. And you'll be giving this ranking on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 obviously means that you know nothing about this area. Number 5 would mean you feel you know a great deal. And so you rank 1 through 5 your knowledge on budgeting, financial management, decision-making, ethics, oral communication, organization behavior, human resources, policy analysis, problem solving, research and statistics, teamwork, and written communication. So it'll be just a matter of picking 1 through 5 for each one of those categories. So part 1 is something you can be able to do very easily and very quickly. Then in part 2, we're going to ask you to expand a bit about your experience or skills in the 5 main core areas of the program: budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods. So a sentence or two about what your experience and your skill level is in each one of those areas. Now, if you have no skill or you have no experience in one of those areas, you've never managed a budget before, you've never dealt with a public sector budget, you can simply say that. You could say, I have no experience with public sector budgets, and that's a valid answer. This is truly an honest assessment that you are making of your skills and experience in these 5 areas. Now, we know people come into the program with a different set of experiences and different skill sets. I always tell the students, several years ago, I had someone who was a capital projects manager at Metro, and he managed a $500 million capital project budget. Well, managing a $500 million budget, he had a great deal of experience in budgeting and finance. But I've had other people come into the class, in fact, most people, who have never directly dealt with a public sector budget. And that's fine, just say, I have no experience dealing with a budget. So just a sentence or two of your experience and skills in each one of those areas. And then in part 3, we simply are going to ask you to discuss your reasons for pursuing the MPA degree and what specific skills you hope to acquire in the MPA program. Now, if you are not enrolled in the MPA program, if you're taking this course as an elective for another graduate program that you're enrolled in, then for this question, you can just kind of tell me what you want to get out of this class. Instead of the MPA program, what would you like to get out of PPA 500? And that will certainly then suffice for part 3. So that's initial skills self-assessment. Again, no right or wrong answers. Be as honest as you can because it is an assessment tool. What we then do for folks who are in the MPA program is once you get to the end of the program and you're taking your 697 directed research course, once you've completed your 5 culminating case studies, you will then do a final skills self-assessment, which will just be a redo of this initial skills self-assessment. So you can compare your skill level from this initial skills self-assessment as you entered the program to your skill level in the final skills self-assessment as you depart the MPA program. So again, it's just very much this bookend type of assessment mechanism. This is worth 5 points and it's graded on a credit, no credit basis. And so if you turn it in, you're going to get 5 out of 5. The only way not to get 5 out of 5 is if you don't turn in the initial skills self-assessment. Okay. So that should be a pretty easy one for you to do. Let's shoot back over to the syllabus. So that's your initial skills self-assessment. Then another thing that you'll be doing is you'll be doing your discussion board postings. And this is my first semester moving to Canvas. The entire university is moving away from what we used to call Beachboard, which was Blackboard, but since we're Long Beach, we refer to it by the fancy name of Beachboard. We're moving away from Beachboard and moving to Canvas. Now, faculty have until summer 2023 to migrate to Canvas. I thought I would go ahead and just do it this spring. And so that's why this is our first semester being on Canvas. But you will have discussion board essays that you will be posting in Canvas, and you'll have 5 graded discussion board essays. And let me show you what those essays are all about. Let me just scoot down here. I've got them all listed in the syllabus. And so you have 5 graded discussion board essays or Canvas essays. Yeah, I use those terms interchangeably, discussion board and Canvas. I use that interchangeably. So for instance, your first graded discussion board post, which is not due until it's going to be due in a couple of weeks, looks at American government. And so what I'm asking you to do is to provide a response to this prompt, anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 paragraphs, so not terribly long, be as concise and parsimonious as possible. And the prompt is, in Federalist number 10, Madison cautioned us against the negative effects of factions. We will read Federalist number 10 next week in our discussion of American government. Do you believe that America is more factionalized and divided than in the past? Provide examples to support your position. Again, there's no right or wrong answer there. What can be done to control the effects of factions more effectively? And then also please respond to 2 classmates. So for every graded Canvas essay requirement, you will have your initial post, which is your response to my prompt, and then you will also respond to 2 of your classmates. Your initial post should be anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 paragraphs. Your response to a classmate can be much briefer. It can be maybe a few sentences, a paragraph is certainly sufficient to get the job done for classmate responses. So you'll be having 3 posts that you'll be doing in each one of these graded Canvas essay weeks. Now, I've listed all the other discussion boards there, their topics. We're not going to go through them all, but you'll see 2, 3, 4, and 5 listed there. They're also listed in our Canvas site, and they're in the discussion board area for your ease of one-stop shopping. But those are your graded Canvas essays. And the way in which I'm going to grade them is each week will be worth 30 points. 20 of those 30 points will be based upon your initial response to my prompt, and then 5 points for each of your responses to classmates. So 20, 5, and 5. I do ask that your responses be well written. Please make sure to proofread your responses so they don't have grammatical or typographical errors. But again, be as parsimonious and be as concise as possible. The whole goal of discussion board is to allow you to interact with your classmates, to share ideas and exchange ideas about the concepts and theories we're covering in the class. I will not participate directly much when it comes to actually posting in discussion board. I really want you to talk with your colleagues in discussion board. I will provide you feedback though through the grading feedback box. And so whenever it comes time to grade them, I will provide you feedback in terms of, this is a great essay. It's very well written. It's on topic. If for some reason I think you need to expand it a bit, I'll say, perhaps a little expansion, could be helpful for future posting, but I'll give you that feedback privately in the grading area. So I won't be giving that feedback in a public forum for everybody to see. Okay. I think it's important to keep that feedback as private as possible. You do have one discussion board post that is due for next week. That's ungraded and it's an introduction post. I know some people have already done that. And for those of you who have already posted an introduction, thank you for that. But just give me a paragraph about who you are, why you're in the course, what you're hoping to get out of the course, maybe what you do for a living, whatever you're comfortable sharing. And just share what you're comfortable sharing. It's not graded. There's no evaluation of it. It's just a way that everyone can get to know each other a little bit better through those introductions. But again, that one's going to be due next week, but it's ungraded. So just, please remember to do that for me, just so I can get to know everyone a little better. Then another assignment that we have is what we call the draft advancement to candidacy form. Now, if you are in the MPA program and you attended Dr. Matthews' orientation session, you know that one of the administrative requirements is you have to complete an advancement to candidacy. The advancement to candidacy is essentially just a listing of the courses that you plan on taking in your time in the program. So it's kind of your program of study. Now, you cannot officially advance to candidacy unless you have completed 6 units, 2 courses in the program, with a cumulative GPA of at least 3.0. So no one can advance to candidacy this semester. If this is your first semester in the program, you're not allowed to advance to candidacy now. But what I like to do in this class is have you fill out a draft advancement to candidacy form. So you'll list on that form the courses that you're taking and when you plan to take those courses. And then I can provide you feedback on your courses and your course sequencing. It's kind of a tool for advising, if you will. And then you can kind of get that individualized advising on your courses now, so that when you are ready to advance to candidacy and when you have completed your 6 units, you'll be ready to go ahead and officially advance to candidacy with our graduate advisor, Dr. Matthews. But let me go ahead and show you that advancement form, and then we'll talk about what we need to do if you are not in the program. But as soon as it loads, okay, hopefully you should be able to see that. This is the advancement to candidacy form. When you entered the program, whenever you applied to the program, there were 3 different tracks that you could apply for. There's the general MPA track, which almost everyone applies for. Then there's also an option in urban affairs, which there might be a couple people in that option. And there's also an option in public works management. And again, maybe 1 or 2 people in that. There are different advancement forms depending upon which track you are in. The one I'm showing you on the screen is for the general MPA, which again is what most people are going to be enrolled in. So this is a form that most people are going to be using, unless you're in the urban affairs or the public works options. It's a very simple form, just your basic information up here, your admission term, which would be spring 2023, and your advancement term, which will be whatever semester you're advancing after you've got those 6 units done. So the earliest you can really advance, if this is your first semester in the program, would be fall 2023. So if you've got this course and another course you're taking this semester, you complete those 2 courses successfully, then fall 2023 would be your advancement term. There are some requirements for advancing in candidacy. One, you have to satisfy the graduate writing assessment requirement, or the GWAR. The GWAR has been suspended by the university, so you can just check met there, because everyone will have met the GWAR because it has been suspended by the university. A minimum grade point average of 3.0 in all graduate coursework. You don't have a GPA now, so you can leave that blank. You don't have one yet. Successful completion of 6 units in the program. You haven't done that yet, obviously, so you'll leave that blank. And completion of the orientation requirement. Whenever you attended that orientation session, that date would go into that box. If you were not able to attend the orientation session, then you can use tonight as your satisfaction of the orientation, because we'll talk about those orientation elements after our break tonight. So you can just put in January 25th as the date for your orientation. Then what I need you to do here is, these are all your core courses: 500, 555, 577, 660, 670, 696, and then 2 sections, 6 units of 697 directed research. What I would like for you to do is list the semester and the year that you plan on taking all of your core courses. Now, this can obviously change. This is just a draft form, but by giving me the semester and the year, it allows me to see how you are sequencing your courses, and I can then provide you some feedback in terms of how those courses are being sequenced. So please give me the semester and the year. Obviously, you don't have any grades yet, so leave that column blank. Then, to round out your 39 unit requirement, you will then have to complete 5 elective courses. Now, you may not be 100% on what 5 elective courses you want to take right now, but just, give me an idea of the 5 courses. You can always change this. It's just a draft, so it's all unofficial. But list 5 courses that you would like to take as electives. Semester and year is not all that important for the electives, but you can go ahead and just kind of postulate which semester and year you want to take those electives in. And we'll talk more about electives when we get to the second half of class tonight. Then there's the internship portion. If you have at least 1 year of full-time administrative work experience, you will be able to waive the internship requirement. So if you have that 1 year of full-time experience, click waiver and then put in the name of the organization. If, however, you don't have 1 year of full-time administrative experience, then you will be required to complete an internship, and you can just go ahead and check that internship box. If you find yourself needing an internship, Dr. Matthews, who is our graduate advisor, doubles as our internship coordinator. So I would recommend that if you do need an internship sometime this semester, it'd be a good idea to reach out to Dr. Matthews, talk to her about some of the articulation agreements we have in place with local agencies in the area. I know if you're interested in nonprofit, the Heart of Ida is one nonprofit that always accepts students for internships. If you're interested in local government, City of Seal Beach, we have a good standing relationship with the City of Seal Beach. City Manager Ingram is a graduate of our program, and so she's always very welcoming for our students to get them into different departments within the city. We have some other articulation agreements as well. So if you think you need an internship, just make contact with Dr. Matthews sometime during this spring semester and start talking about where you might be able to do that internship at. So that's it. That's the draft advancement form. Again, it's worth 5 points, just like the initial skills self-assessment. You turn it in, you get 5 points. It's basically a credit, no credit type of deal. Now, if you are not in the MPA program, I know we have a few folks who are not in the MPA program. It doesn't make any sense for you to fill out this because you're not going to be taking MPA courses beyond this one, perhaps. So if you're not enrolled in the MPA program, if you have an advancement form you've already done for your department, you can substitute that and submit that to me. in the Dropbox. If you don't have that, and you're not in the MPA program, you can also just send me a note and say, I'm not enrolled in the MPA program. I haven't advanced a candidacy yet in my department, and that's fine. And you'll go ahead and get the 5 points of credit. So I understand there's no reason to make you do this if you're not enrolled in the MPA program. But if you are enrolled in the MPA program, this is a good way for us to talk about your program of study and get you ready to advance the candidacy whenever you can officially advance. So let's go back to our syllabus. Give it a second. Okay. So you've got your initial skill self-assessment worth 5 points. You have your draft advancement to candidacy form worth 5 points, your midterm assessment worth 100 points, your final assessment worth 100 points, and then those 5 graded Canvas essays worth 30 points each, 20 points for your initial post, and then 5 points for each of your responses to classmates for a grand total of 360 points. If you are new to Long Beach, you should know that we do not use pluses and minuses here at the university. We've tried on several times in the past. We've had votes by students and faculty. They always go down to defeat. Faculty always vote for plus-minus system, and students always vote against it. And there are more students than there are faculty, and so we don't have pluses and minuses. That is somewhat difficult when you're at the graduate level, because typically, your grades tend to hover around A and B. The problem there is, if you don't have pluses and minuses, you really can't distinguish between someone who ended with 99% and someone who ended with 90%. But it is what it is. So 90% and above is an A, 80% above is a B. In our program, grades of A, B, and C will all count. So even if you get a C in an MPA course, that will count. You'll just have to balance that with an A in another course to keep your GPA at a 3.0. But grades of C do count for graduate credit. Grades of D, though, do not. And so if you end up getting a D in a course, that's a course that you'll have to retake, and then the university will repeat and average those grades. I tend to have a 1% flexibility rule that if you turn everything in on time and you do what I call give it the old graduate school try, if you come in at 89%, I will give you the 1% boost up to the A. If you come in at 79%, I'll give you the 1% boost up to a B. But to get that 1% flexibility, you need to turn everything in on time. Then I have some grading rubrics here, just some simple rubrics in terms of how I grade the assessments, how I grade the Canvas essays. Again, 20 points for your initial response, 5 points for your responses to each of your classmates. And then, of course, the initial skill self-assessment is just credit, no credit. I lost my chat, so let me open the chat up again. Are there any questions up to this point in time? Okay, let's talk a bit about the course schedule then. This week, obviously, we're just doing an introduction to the course and a review of the syllabus. We'll talk about the program requirements. We'll talk about the mission and values of the program. The assignment you have that is then due is to complete that introduction, just a 1-paragraph introduction, sharing whatever you feel comfortable sharing about yourself. Next week, we have a special guest coming in. We have Kelly Janicek. And Kelly Janicek is a university librarian who is assigned to public administration. Each university librarian has a different area of expertise. Kelly's areas are political science and public administration. So I'd like to have her come into our 500 class to give you a tutorial on how to do research in public administration. Now, if you've gone to Long Beach before, if you're undergrad, you're probably familiar with using the library, but there are certain electronic databases that are more useful for public administration than other databases. So what Kelly will do is she will talk to you about those databases that are most useful to you in doing research on public administration topics for future courses. She'll also talk to you about APA formatting, because APA is the tool that we use here in the Graduate Center. So she'll do all that in the first half of class next week, probably take her until about 5:30. Then we'll take a break, and as long as we're able to get all that done, then the second half of class, we will turn our attention to the foundations of American government. In our campus site, I have a link for you for the Articles of Confederation, as well as for the Constitution, as well as for the Federalist Papers. And the three Federalist Papers that we will focus on are Federalist Papers 10, 39, and 51. Our discussion of Federalist Paper number 10 will be important for you because that will then lay the framework for your first graded Canvas essay, Canvas essay number 1. So that's what we'll be doing next week. Then in week 3, we will turn our attention to accountability and ethics. And it's likely that we probably won't get through all of our American government information next week. We'll probably have to carry some of those topics over into week number 3. That's usually what tends to happen. But we'll finish up American government, and then we'll talk accountability and ethics. Our accreditor, which is NASPA, the Network of Schools of Public Policy, Affairs, and Administration. I always get their name wrong, but NASPA. They require that all MPA programs have a focus on ethics. You can do it in one of two ways. One way is you can have a standalone required course in ethics, or you could sprinkle coverage of ethics throughout your entire core curriculum. We have chosen the latter approach, and so we sprinkle ethics throughout all of our core courses. It's imperative that early on in this course, we talk about the accountability and ethics of being a public servant. We'll talk about how difficult it is sometimes to assign accountability in the public sector, but we'll talk about some strategies by which we can do that. And I'll also introduce you to the American Society for Public Administration, otherwise known as ASPA, and their code of ethics. And we'll go through all the principles in the code of ethics and expose you to that, because you will then be using that information for Canvas essay number 2. So that will be our focus then. And then after that, in that week, you then have the initial skills self-assessment due in Canvas essay number 2, which focuses on ethics. Week 4, we'll look at the scope of government. We'll get into the size and scope of the different levels of government. And most notably, we'll talk about differences between public and private organizations. You'll note one of your readings on there is an article from the classics textbook by Graham Allison, looking at public and private management. Are they alike in all unimportant respects? And we'll use that Allison article as a jumping off point for our discussion of the differences between public and private sector administration. If there was no difference between the two, then there would be no need for an MPA degree. You could just get an MBA degree. But we'll talk about some of the reasons why it's necessary to deal with the public sector a bit differently than how we deal with private sector organizations. And then your draft advancement to candidacy form is due that week. Then in week 5, we will get into a discussion of the field and discipline of public administration. We will ask and answer the big question of, is public administration a discipline? And we'll talk about the different characteristics of an academic discipline, and then allow you to draw your own conclusions about whether or not public administration is truly a discipline. When I went through graduate school, I went to kind of a very much of a classical type of political science program, whereby public administration and public policy were seen as subfields within the bigger discipline of political science. Now, here at Long Beach, we have a standalone department, the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration, that focuses on public administration differently than the Department of Political Science. In fact, the Department of Political Science here at Long Beach is in a completely different college. They're in the College of Liberal Arts. We're in the College of Health and Human Services. So there are different ways of looking at public administration as to whether or not it is a discipline. We'll talk about all those different perspectives. And then if it is a discipline, one of the major core elements of an academic discipline is that they have unique ways of studying phenomena. And so we'll talk about some of the unique theories that we have developed to study public administration and public sector organizations. That week, you have Canvas essay number 3 due, and then the midterm assessment is also due that week as well. Then in week 6, on March 1st, we'll get into a discussion of public policy. We'll talk about decision-making models that we use in public policy. We'll talk about policy formulation, policy implementation, policy evaluation, and we'll talk about how we can effectively implement public policies and the search for effectiveness in the public sector. In addition to that, if we have time that evening, we'll also then talk about civil service. We'll talk about public employment. We'll talk about civil service reform, what a civil service system is, why it's important. And you then have Canvas essay number 4 that is due that week. And then week 7, March 8th, we will talk about the management of resources in the public sector. We'll talk about managing human resources and managing fiscal resources, the two important resources that we manage as public administrators. You have your final graded Canvas essay number 5, due that week as well. And then for our final week on March 15th, we're going to handle that as kind of a wrap up. So if there's more information that we have not been able to cover yet, we may have to cover that information on that evening. If we have covered all of our information by March 15th, then we'll reserve that night just to give you extra time to work on your final assessment that you'll then be turning in by midnight on March 15th. So that's our schedule. Those are some of the topics that we will be covering. For your one-stop shopping convenience, I provided you with a list of the important due dates for assignments. So your initial skills self-assessment is due on February the 8th. Your draft advancement to candidacy form is due on February 22nd. Your midterm assessment is due on February 28th, and your final assessment is due on March 15th. You have all our 8 Zoom sessions listed there for you, always beginning at 4 p.m. And then the due dates for your Canvas essays, your first introductory essay, which is ungraded, is due by January 31st. Then your first Canvas essay is due by February 7th, second one by February 14th, third one by February 28th, fourth one by March 7th, and the fifth one by March 14th. So those, just for your handy reference, all the due dates for the course. I've already said, we've got all the discussion board assignments listed there for you. They're also listed for you in our Canvas site. Late assignments, there's a 10% penalty for every 24 hours that an assignment is late. I do understand that life can intervene. I know many of you have full-time jobs, you have family obligations, you may have other courses that you are taking. If life does intervene and there's a reason why you're not able to get an assignment turned in by the due date, reach out to me, send me an email, let me know what is going on, and we can talk about an extension to help you avoid that late penalty. But if I don't hear from you and an assignment just doesn't come in, then there's that 10% penalty per day that the assignment is late. Everything is delivered electronically, obviously, because we are an online course. So all of your assignments, your midterm and final assessments, your initial skills self-assessment, your draft advancement to candidacy form will be submitted through our Canvas site through the drop boxes. I've created different drop boxes for each one of those assignments. Your Canvas essays will be posted directly into the discussion area. So don't attach a link, just put it directly in that discussion area. So everything's coming in through our Canvas site. Now I'll show you the Canvas site in just a second. Policy on withdrawals, this is important in that the university allows instructors to administratively withdraw people if they don't show up to class or if they're not turning in assignments. I don't do that. I leave that to you. So if for some reason you're not able to complete this class, life has intervened and you're not able to take the class this semester, please do go through the formal withdrawal process, because when we get to the end of the semester, or for us, when we get to the middle of March, whenever I have to input grades, if I don't have a basis for assigning a grade, I will have to give what is called a WU, which is an unauthorized withdrawal. That counts as an F for GPA purposes, so we want to do everything we can to keep an unauthorized withdrawal off of your transcript, because once they go on the transcript, they're notoriously difficult to get off of the transcript. I served 10 years as department chair, and I know I've fought that battle over and over with enrollment services, and have been pretty unsuccessful at getting those removed from transcripts. So it's better just to avoid them altogether. Incompletes, I typically do not give incompletes unless it's the most extraordinary of circumstances. And I know sometimes extraordinary circumstances occur. I've had students who've had to have surgeries or had major life events that have occurred and have had to take an incomplete. If you do feel that you're going to need an incomplete, reach out to me as early as you can in the semester. Again, remember, we are done by March 15th. And so this all goes by very, very quickly. So it's something you'll need to contact me very early on. The university requires that at least 2/3 of the work is done before instructors can provide an incomplete. And so that's why incomplete grades are pretty unusual in our program. The other problem with an incomplete grade is incomplete gives you a year to complete the work. And if you don't complete the work, then it reverts to usually an F grade. And sometimes people get busy with life and they forget they have an incomplete, and then they look at their transcript and suddenly that's flipped to an F. So we want to avoid that if at all possible. Students with disabilities, if you are registered with, it's now called BMAC, the Bob Murphy Accessibility Center, I believe it is. But if you are registered with BMAC, please get that information to me and we can make reasonable accommodations as necessary. Again, we don't have any timed examinations in this class, and so usually that's not a major issue with us. And then again, attendance policy, I leave it completely up to you. You are professionals, and so you can decide whether or not you are here on Wednesday evenings. But again, if you miss Wednesday evening, you are going to miss a lot. And so you can watch the recording, but watching the recording is oftentimes just not the same as actually being here. But I will not grade on attendance, and there'll be no points assigned for attendance. You all know the technology requirements because you're here tonight and you are participating. And then finally, and I'll leave the syllabus after this, any changes to the syllabus that need to be made will probably benefit you. I never move due dates up. If anything, I move things back. And the only reason we move anything back is if we are running long in time and we don't get everything covered in 1 week and we have to push the topic to the next week. Those are the only types of changes that we would typically see with the syllabus. We have 8 scheduled Wednesday meetings, and hopefully nothing intervenes and nothing affects that. I will not be on campus for every one of our meetings. I'll be teaching some of the meetings remotely. So I hope to have good connectivity, but if for some reason, if I lose my connectivity and you see me in the middle of the session disappear, just hang tight because the session will remain open and then I'll log back in as soon as I have connectivity again. So sometimes that's happened in the past. Hopefully it won't be an issue that we have to deal with this term. I think that's the syllabus. I think those are most of the requirements of the class. Do you all have any questions at all about the syllabus or about the course itself? Okay, if not, then I'll just share my screen and let me go ahead and find our Canvas. Yeah, go ahead.
Someone posted on the chat.
Oh, my chat closed up on me. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Is it possible for us to take graduate classes in the major we pursued our undergraduate degree in and have them apply as an elective? Yes, you certainly can, as long as those courses are at the graduate level. So they're required to be at the graduate level in order to be able to count towards your 39 unit requirement. And also it depends upon the department that those courses are in. Some departments are impacted in terms of their enrollment, and so they don't accept any non-majors. That's something you want to talk about with Dr. Matthews. And if you know what courses you want to take and use as electives, you can certainly talk to Dr. Matthews and she can talk to the advisors over in that department and see if they can get you enrolled in those courses. But absolutely, as long as they're graduate level courses. So, if your undergraduate major is political science and you want to use some graduate courses in political science as your electives, that should not be a problem at all. Luciano, go ahead.
Really quick, do we get assigned advisors for this program, or that's not going to happen?
That's a great question. No, we do not assign advisors. Any full-time faculty member can kind of serve as your informal advisor. We have one graduate advisor, which is Dr. Melissa Matthews. She gets a course release to be the graduate advisor. So she handles serving on the graduate council, and if there are any exceptions or any issues with enrollment services, she handles all those. Admittedly, she's more up to date on university policies than probably anybody else because she does serve on that graduate council. But you can meet with any faculty member and get advising from any full-time faculty member.
Thank you. Would that include like making sure that my job could count as an internship? Any faculty could do that, or is that Dr. Matthews to connect with?
Yeah, I would connect with Dr. Matthews because she serves as our internship coordinator now. So she would be the one, and she keeps track of all of our internships and who's working where and the articulation agreements. So I would go to Dr. Matthews for that. Very good. Good questions. Excellent questions. Any other questions while we're doing this right now, while I'm trying to open up our Canvas site. Let's see, I'm going to have to log in again. So bear with me while it logs me in. Okay. I don't know if you've used Canvas before. Of course. Yeah, of course. It's going to do that. See if I can get in this way. Okay, there we go. I don't know if you've used Canvas before. I'm somewhat familiar with Canvas from the past, but this is our first semester really using it here at Long Beach. And Canvas is good. It has some good features. It has some features that are superior to the features that we see in Beachboard, but there's also a bit of a learning curve. So if you haven't used Canvas yet, I kind of get the feeling that Canvas is a bit more bare bones in the way in which its layout looks as compared to Beachboard, but I think it works well, and certainly it's going to be sufficient for what we are doing in this course. So this is what your Canvas site should look like whenever you log in. Let me move this over a little bit. I've put it in the student view, so it should look a lot like the way in which it looks for you. So it's broken down by modules. And so you'll see the syllabus is there if you need to download another copy of the syllabus. Then I set up a section called Important Program Documents for the initial skills self-assessment. So when you do the initial skills self-assessment, you can literally just download that form and just, fill it out and then submit it to the Dropbox. I have the advancement form there for your draft advancement to candidacy. And then I also have the draft advancement to candidacy form if you're in the option in urban affairs or if you're in the option of public works. But again, the vast majority of people are in the general MPA, so you'll use that advancement link for your draft advancement form. Some of the readings that we have for next week: Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and the Federalist Papers. I have listed links there for you to access those documents. And then for Federalist Papers, I broke out the three most important ones that we're going to be covering for this class: Federalist Paper number 10, 39, and 51. And of the three, it's really Federalist 10 and 39 that we'll spend time talking about in class next week if we have time, and if not, then we'll do it the following week. But those are the ones that you're really going to want to focus on. Some additional documents, once we get to management of financial resources, I have different examples of budget formats on there as well. Then I break it down by week. And so here in week 1, again, another link to the syllabus. I think redundancy is good, that we have more than one place to get these documents. The week 1 slides we're going to be using in the second half of class tonight are there for you. Slides on the mission and values of the program are there for you as well. And then again, the initial skills self-assessment and the draft advancement to candidacy form. Week 2 slides are there for you. Week 3 slides are there. Week 4, week 5, week 6. Week 7 slides are there for you, and then some supplemental information and documents that we'll be using for week 7. Again, week 8's kind of a catch-all that if we haven't finished everything up by week 7, then we'll cover that information in week number 8. And your session invite is there for you as well. At the bottom of this, I will place another module that will be Wednesday Zoom recordings. And so by tomorrow morning, I'll have a link there under Wednesday Zoom recordings for the recording from tonight's session. And that's where I'll put all of our Zoom recordings. So it's right there on your main splash page as you go into the course. Discussions. So as I said, you have your introduction, which is ungraded, which is due next week. And then Canvas Essay 1, 2, I don't know why these are out of order, but 3 and 4 and 5. There's a Class Cafe link there just for you if you want to, some people like to set up study groups or whatever, just, to discuss amongst yourselves. If you want to make any of those arrangements, you can do that there in that Class Cafe. I'll show you, whenever you're going to post your introduction, you just click on the link if you haven't done it yet. And you can see there are introductions already posted there. You can just click reply, type in your introduction, hit submit, and that's how you'll be doing your Canvas essays. You'll be doing it directly in this discussions link. Assignments. We have drop boxes for each of the assignments, the midterm, the final. The Canvas essays you'll be doing directly in, so you won't need to use those. There's your link for your initial skills self-assessment, so you can click on that, click the upload button, upload your self-assessment, and that's how you'll be submitting all of your assignments in the class. The grades obviously is how you find your grades in the class. And let me point out one more thing that's not in the syllabus, but this is a new addition for this term. And this is an American government pre-assessment. It is basically a practice quiz. It is anonymous and it is ungraded. So you don't have to worry about what grade you get on it. It's just for assessment purposes. It consists of 20 questions. I hope it doesn't record if I do this, but so it consists of 20 questions. It's available as of today, and it closes at midnight next Tuesday. These 20 questions, you have 4 minutes to answer these 20 questions, which are basic questions on American and California government. And again, you're not graded on this. This is just an assessment. It allows me to see how much you remember about American and California government coming into the class to help me better shape the information that we're going to cover next week and the week after that on American government. So if you can please do this between now and next Tuesday, the 31st, just so I can have that assessment. It goes by very quickly. Again, you've got 20 questions, you've got 4 minutes, and so you don't have a whole lot of time to answer the questions. You don't have time to look up the questions. You have about 12 seconds per question, but that's kind of the thing. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't, that type of deal. But if you could please do that. Again, it's on an anonymous basis, and it'll just be a good assessment tool for me to use in determining how much we need to cover when we get to our coverage of American government. I think that is about it with the Canvas site. Again, play around with the Canvas site. It's a pretty bare bones site. I haven't put a lot of extraneous information on there, just the documents and the drop boxes and the discussion areas that you need in order to be successful in this course. So that is our Canvas site. Okay, any other questions about the course, about Canvas, about the syllabus, anything at all on those topics? Okay. Then if not, let's go ahead and take our break. I like to do a break every session, usually about a 10 or 15-minute break. So let's go ahead, we'll take a break until 5:20, and we'll come back at 5:20, and then we'll talk about program requirements. I'll introduce you to the mission and the values of the program, and then we'll talk about accreditation and let you know what's going on in terms of our accreditation cycle and some of the accreditation events that are going to be going on over the next couple of months. So come on back at 5:20, and we will talk MPA program. Okay, welcome back. Hope you had a good brief break. In the second half of class, I think we can probably dispense with a lot of this relatively quickly. And we're going to talk about some of the information you got from the orientation about the program and some of the policies and requirements of the program, talk about the mission values of the program, and then accreditation. For anyone who, if you're not enrolled in the MPA program, I probably should have told you before the break, you don't have to be here for this section of the class, because again, we're just talking about the MPA program itself. So it's completely up to you whether or not you want to remain for the second half of class. But if you're not in the MPA program, at least you can learn a little bit more about the program, I guess. But this is primarily for folks who are getting their MPA degrees. So at that orientation session with Dr. Matthews, I'm assuming that she covered a lot of the major elements of the program. So we're just going to reiterate some things, and I'll give you a few insights from my time as department chair about some things to do and not to do as in your time in the MPA program. So in our program, we are considered by our accrediting organization as a very large program. Excuse me. I had a sneeze coming, sorry about that. As a very large program, they kind of give sizes across the country, and we are in that very large category. We're one of the largest MPA programs in the Western United States by student population. So we have a large student population, but we have a relatively small number of full-time nucleus faculty. As you can see on the screen, we currently have 7 nucleus full-time faculty members. So our courses are delivered not just by our nucleus faculty members, but also by a strong cadre of adjunct faculty members as well. We have adjunct faculty members who typically have been teaching the program for many, many years. We have some adjunct faculty members who have been teaching the program for over 30 years. We have some newer faculty members who have joined the program who are city managers, can really bring some good contemporary insight into a lot of our classes. But in terms of our full-time nucleus faculty, we have 7. You should probably know Dr. Butts is now our department chair. He became department chair about a year and a half ago. I served for 10 years, and now Dr. Butts has taken over. Dr. Matthews is our graduate advisor. So she is kind of your go-to person for internships and for if you have any exceptions to policy or any administrative hurdles that you have to get over, she's the person to help you with that. I am the director of the DL MPA program. That's our distance learning MPA program. I've been director of that program since about 2005, so about 17, 18 years now. Dr. Frank Baber does primarily our organization theory courses. He is now part of the faculty early retirement program. And so that means that he's only teaching half time for the next couple of semesters. So you may have him if you take the organization theory course, but he's only teaching 2 courses per semester. Dr. Bill Moore is our budgeting guru in the department. He is also in the faculty early retirement program, and he will be fully retired at the end of this spring semester. So unless you happen to be taking public budgeting this semester, you probably will not cross paths with Dr. Moore, as he will be fully retired as of May. Dr. Ed Martin does primarily our human resource management and urban affairs courses. And then Dr. Tina Zhao is our newest faculty member. She's been with us now, I think this is her 3rd year, I believe. And she teaches primarily policy and will also be then picking up the budgeting courses next year after Dr. Moore has ridden off into the retirement sunset. The interesting thing about our faculty is that public administration is a multidisciplinary field. And so we don't all have public administration degrees. Dr. Butts, I believe his degree, if I'm not mistaken, is a political science degree. Dr. Matthews' degree is in organization leadership. I'm a political scientist. Dr. Baber is a political scientist. Dr. Moore is an economist. Dr. Martin is a public administration degree. And Dr. Zhao has her doctorate in public administration as well. But public administration is very much multidisciplinary. So as you know, in the program, you have core courses that you'll need to complete this course, and then budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods. And then once all those courses are completed, you're then able to register for PPA 697 directed research. And you'll be registering for 2 sections of directed research, a total of 6 units. It's in this directed research class where you'll be completing those 5 case studies, the case study on budgeting, 1 on HR, 1 on org theory, 1 on policy, and 1 on research methods. So those are your core courses. Then in addition to those core courses, you will then also take 5 elective courses. As we talked about, the vast majority of people tend to take those courses within the MPA program. They take PPA courses as their electives. But if you are interested in taking a course outside the department, talk to Dr. Matthews and she can give you some advice in terms of whether or not that's a course you'll be able to get into if the department is impacted or not. Those electives, those 5 electives, you'll need to list on your advancement to candidacy form. And again, if you're taking them outside the department, you'll need to have Dr. Matthews' approval before registering for those courses. If you have taken graduate coursework elsewhere, so sometimes we have people who will transfer from one MPA program into our MPA program. You are allowed to transfer in up to 9 units from your previous program into our program. Those 9 units, those 3 classes, will transfer in as electives. All of the core courses must be taken in residency in our program, but the transfer courses will come in as electives. So you can bring in up to 3 out of 5 electives from other graduate programs. Now, in order to be able to transfer those programs in, you should again talk to Dr. Matthews. They need to be at the graduate level and they need to be from a regionally accredited school or program. So Talk to Dr. Matthews if you believe you have some courses that you are transferring in. The basic MPA program requirements, I'm sure you heard about in orientation as well in the first half of our class tonight. Advancement to candidacy, that's your listing of your program of study. You're able to officially advance to candidacy after you've completed 6 units in the program with a cumulative GPA of 3.0. You must advance to candidacy at least 1 semester before the semester in which you plan to graduate. That's important. So don't wait until your graduation semester to advance to candidacy. In fact, it's good practice to advance to candidacy as soon as you can. So as soon as you have those 6 units done, that's when you should advance to candidacy. You also must be enrolled in the semester in which you are advancing. So if you are only enrolled in fall and spring and you try and advance in the summer, but you're not enrolled in summer, then you're not going to be able to advance. You have to be enrolled in something in the semester in which you are advancing. In addition to advancing in candidacy, there's also the petition to graduate. The petition to graduate is where you apply for graduation. You have to do that according to the due dates that you see there on the screen. If you are graduating in the spring or the summer, you must apply to graduate no later than October 15th. If you are graduating in the fall or the winter, you must apply to graduate no later than March 1st. Your application to graduate is something you can do electronically directly through the enrollment services site. Whenever you apply to graduate and you pay the graduation fee, and I think it's, I don't know, it was $65 when I was chair. I don't know, they tend to incrementally increase that every couple of years. When you pay the fee and you petition to graduate, that will then trigger enrollment services to do a grad check. And they will look at your advancement to candidacy form that you filed, make sure that you've taken all the courses that you have listed on your advancement to candidacy form. If they see that you have taken different courses than what you listed on your advancement form, then enrollment services will reach out to the PPA office, will reach out to Dr. Butts and Dr. Matthews and Kathy Allen, and we'll have you do a program change form. That's something the department can do for you. It's a very simple process, but just brings what you've taken into alignment with what your advancement to candidacy form says. If you miss those deadlines, there is a late petition to graduate period that you can apply after the deadline, but they will charge you a late fee. It used to be $15. Again, I don't know if they've raised it recently, but you will have to pay that late fee to the university. The university enjoys collecting fees. So then also we talked about directed research as your final core courses, those 2 sections that you'll be taking at the end of your program. In directed research, you'll be completing your 5 case studies, a budgeting, an HR, an org theory, a policy, and a research methods case study. Then once those 5 case studies are completed, you will then do your final skills self-assessment, the redo of the initial skills self-assessment you're doing here in this class, and then turning in your student learning portfolio. And we'll talk more about the student learning portfolio in just a minute. 697 is not a classroom-based course. There are no scheduled meetings for it. You work independently on your cases. There's no revise and resubmit on the cases. And so when you turn in the case, it's considered to be a final submission. And then the core faculty member will grade that case and then upload your case into, I guess in the future, it'll end up being Canvas. It's been Beachboard in the past. And then your grade in 697 will be the average of your grades on those 5 cases. So we'll take and all the cases are graded on a scale of 0 to 100, and we'll just take your grades on those 5 cases, we'll average them, and that will then be your grade for both sections of 697. So that's how 697 works. The cases are good for a year in that faculty upload the cases in August, and then those cases that are uploaded in August are then good for the fall and the spring semester. And the cases don't get changed out again until the following August. One important thing to note currently about 697 for your planning purposes as you're putting your advancement form together is that we only offer 697 in the fall and the spring. So there's no 697 in the summer or in the winter, only in the fall and in the spring. And the reason for that is a complicated answer, but it has to do with faculty workload and the budget in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. And We're just not able to offer 697 sections in either the summer or the winter. So only fall and spring for 697. And to get into 697 is by permit only. So you will have to get a permit to allow you to enroll in 697. And let me go back a step because I'm sure that Dr. Matthews talked about this in the orientation, but just to remind you, 2 of our core courses do have prerequisites. So PPA 555 public budgeting has a prerequisite. You must demonstrate that you have taken an undergraduate microeconomics course in order to get the permit to enroll in public budgeting. That undergraduate economics course could be taken at a 4-year school, at a community college. As long as it's an undergraduate microeconomics course, that will be good enough to then qualify you to take public budgeting. If you don't have an undergraduate microeconomics course, then you can take PPA 518, Microeconomics for Public Administration, and that 518 course will then meet the prerequisite for public budgeting, and it can also count as one of your electives. So you can also apply it as one of your 5 electives. Then for PPA 696 research methods, the prerequisite for that course is an undergraduate statistics course. You again could take that undergraduate statistics course during your undergraduate training at a 4-year school or at a community college. If you don't have an undergraduate statistics course, I think most people do, but if you don't, then you can take PPA 517 analytical skills development, and that will then serve as your prerequisite for research methods and also can count as 3 units toward your 5 elective requirement. And so it can be one of your electives toward your 39 unit requirement. So Dr. Matthews probably mentioned that, but just to reiterate, when you go to register for budgeting or research methods, those courses are both by permit only. And so you would have to contact Kathy Allen. She would check to make sure you have your prerequisites and then would issue your permit to allow you to then register. Yes, go ahead, Luciano.
Thank you, Professor. Just really quick, I know you mentioned the budgeting class has a prerequisite or so. This will be my first class, so I have a schedule for the next class right after this one. Am I hearing that maybe I should take 518 first before taking that class, essentially?
If you don't have an undergraduate microeconomics class, then yes, you would have to do the 518 first before you can then take the budgeting course. That's correct. Yeah, it's a prerequisite that Dr. Moore added, oh gosh, probably about 7 or 8 years ago to our budgeting course. And yeah, if you don't have an undergraduate microeconomics, then you will have to take 518.
And I have a question on that. So how did I was able to enroll into the class? I don't think I was red flagged or I'm in the class, I think.
Did you get
I
a
got the
permit?
link. No.
Okay. Then okay. If you're in the class, you're in the class. Typically, you have to get a permit to get into that class from Kathy. But maybe it wasn't flagged as a permit course for this semester. So I'll be completely honest with you. I teach budgeting in the summer. And
Yeah.
Is that when you register in the summer or do you register for the fall?
For this fall, because that was
Okay.
one of the classes that work with my schedule tonight with online.
Okay.
And I think I'll be okay, but it just sounds like I need to have fundamental, theoretical framework before getting into the class. So I became a little concerned because it's stated in the syllabus as well. But yeah, I guess I could just reach to Dr. Matthews, I believe you said, to talk to her more specifically about this.
Yeah, check with Dr. Matthews. I'll be honest with you. When I teach the budgeting course, I don't think it's vital to have that microeconomics background for the way I teach the budgeting course, because we spend a couple of weeks doing public finance and we cover all that information within the 555 course. I know Dr. Moore would do it differently. And so it was more important for his section than it was for my section. But reach out to Dr. Matthews and just confirm. My guess is she's probably going to say, if you're already enrolled in the course, just go ahead and stay in the course and you'll probably be fine with it. I think Dr. Zhao is going to be taking over the budgeting sections next fall because Dr. Moore is going to be retired. But check in with Dr. Matthews and see what she says.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, let's see, Danny, I should have just signed up for a budgeting course instead of IAE. Yeah, it's in the past, Dr. Moore did the permits in the past, and so he was very, very diligent about making sure everyone had microeconomics because he really believed microeconomics needed to be taken first before budgeting. Now that he's in the faculty early retirement program, I don't think he's doing the permits anymore, and so I think that's probably why it's maybe not being applied as rigorously in the past. But at least for my section, people do equally well even if they haven't had microeconomics. But check with Dr. Matthews and make sure she's good with it. Let's see. Can you remind if it matters how old the undergraduate stats class is? Not really. As long as you've had an undergraduate stats class, that will be good enough for the prerequisite. So yeah, as long as you've had it sometime in the past, you'll be fine. And the only reason why we have that stats prerequisite for the research methods is in the past, when we taught research methods, we kind of taught it as classic social science research methods. So the first half of the class was research design and sampling and data collection. Then the second half of the class was all devoted to statistics. And I used to teach 696 in the old version. And we spend the entire second half of the class in the SPSS lab running SPSS analyses. We realized that that was too much for one class. I mean, we were taking two courses and squeezing them together into one, and it just did not work. So we decided to take the statistics out and the SPSS out of 696 and only focus more on program evaluation. And so that's why that statistics prerequisite then became important for 696. But I think it's much more common for folks to have an undergraduate stats course than it is an undergraduate microeconomics course. I mean, in my experience, the vast majority of people have had some undergraduate stats course. But if you haven't had undergraduate statistics, 517 analytical skills development is a good course to give you that statistical background, moving then into 696. But as always, Dr. Matthews as our graduate advisor, she's the go-to person for a lot of these types of things. So I've served as graduate advisor for about 5-6 years earlier on in my career, and I'm glad that Dr. Matthews is doing it now because all the rules change every single year. And the university and college are always giving us different policies and rules, and she's the one who's up to date on all of that. So I think most people are in the general MPA program. I mentioned earlier that there's also a track, an option in urban affairs and an option in public works. I've got the links up there in case you want to refresh your memory about what courses you need to take for urban affairs and public works. You can see that in the catalog at those links. We then also have certificates that are available. And these are available to people regardless of what track you are in, general, urban affairs, public works. But the three main certificates that we've been offering lately are a certificate in employee-employer relations, a certificate in public sector financial management, and a certificate in public management analysis. Now, to be very candid with you, the vast majority of students who do a certificate, which is not the majority of overall students, but the ones who do a certificate tend to do the employee-employer relations certificate. And the reason for that is that that certificate is serviced completely by courses within the MPA program. So you don't have to leverage any courses in other departments to provide that certificate. Those courses that are required for employee-employer relations, such as PPA 575, employee-employer relations, courses like PPA 570, negotiating dynamics, PPA 581, community relations, those courses are offered relatively frequently within the MPA program. The public sector financial management certificate has very few students in it. And the last time I checked for accreditation, I think we had one or two students in that certificate. That's a more difficult certificate to service because we leverage college of business courses and management courses and information systems courses to service that certificate. And it has been notoriously difficult for us to get our students into those courses because those courses are oftentimes closed to business majors only. And so I think we're in the process of phasing out the financial management certificate just because it's been difficult for people to complete that certificate because it's tough for them to get into those management courses. And with the public management analysis certificate, we also tend to have maybe 1 or 2 people in that certificate program. Again, because the courses aren't offered that frequently for the management analysis program. There are some microcomputing courses in that program, 521, 522, that we really don't offer anymore. 523, the GIS class, which we offer very infrequently. So those 2 certificates aren't serviced as well as the employee-employer relations certificate. But if you are interested in human relations and you think you might want to work in the future in an HR office, that employee-employer relations certificate may be something that you might want to think about. You can do that certificate within the confines of your 39-unit requirement. So it won't require you to take additional units beyond the 39. It will just limit the types of electives that you can take. And again, you can follow that link and it will show you the plan of study for that certificate program. We have already eliminated 2 certificate programs, the Urban Executive Management and the Transportation Policy certificates. We eliminated those because of lack of demand as well as duplication. The Urban Executive Management overlaps a lot with the Urban Affairs option, and the Transportation Certificate, College of Professional and Continuing Education started their own Transportation Certificate program. And so we kind of allow them to have that because they have the expertise over there. The transportation policy faculty who used to be in our department have long since retired. So we went ahead and discontinued those certificates. So in 697, you're completing 5 cases. You're doing your final skills self-assessment, and then you are submitting your student learning portfolio. So let's just reiterate some aspects of that student learning portfolio, what it is and what comprises that portfolio. The portfolio has really gone through a transformation over the past decade or so. In the past, the portfolio consisted of your accomplishments. And so you would put in awards that you've received at work or projects that you completed at work. We no longer do that. Now we're only looking at material that you are creating during your time within our program. But even with this revised student learning portfolio, it still is a very good assessment tool. It allows us and it also allows you to assess your acquisition of skills and your progress throughout your time in the MPA program. And it also can be an assist for employment and promotion. You know, the nice thing is that in this student learning portfolio, you're putting in some assignments from your core courses. And so it's one thing to go on an interview and say, I know how to analyze a budget. That's another thing to say, and here is a budget analysis that I did in my MPA program. So it can be helpful for you in terms of employment as well as promotion. But we have really streamlined the student learning portfolio to make it easier for you to put together. So right now, the student learning portfolio consists of only 3 sections. There are 3 parts to it. Part 1 consists of the initial skills self-assessment that you are doing in this class, and then the final skills assessment that you will do in 697 after you have completed your 5 cases. So you just take your initial skills self-assessment, your final skills self-assessment, that then becomes part 1 of your portfolio. Part 2 of your portfolio will consist of the pre and post instructional assignments from your core courses. Now, not including 500, we don't have a pre and post instructional in this class. You know, our contribution is the initial skills self-assessment. And you also don't have pre and post instructional in 697 because it's the 5 case studies that will be going in your portfolio from 697. But for your other core courses, budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods, each of those courses should designate a pre and post instructional assignment. The pre-instructional assignment is submitted early in the semester, usually within the first 3 weeks of the semester. And then the post-instructional assignment is turned in at the end of the semester, usually in the last 3 weeks of the semester. The pre and the post-instructional assignments should be similar to each other and allow you as well as your instructor to gauge your acquisition of skills throughout that course. And so let me give you an example. In the summer, in summer session 1, I always teach public budgeting. And so my pre-instructional assignment for public budgeting is I have students acquire a city budget. You know, go onto a city website, download the city's budget. read the city's budget, and then answer 8 basic questions about that budget. So questions such as, what type of budget format's being used, how easy to read the budget is, the fiscal solvency of the city. So you'll answer 8 questions based upon your reading of that budget when you start the budgeting course, using no information from the course. The only information you use to answer those 8 questions will be what you already know about budgets. So you'll just analyze it based upon what you already know. Then for the post-instructional assignment, you will redo your pre-instructional. You'll answer those same 8 questions again for that same budget, but you'll be able to use all the information that you've acquired in the class. So information from the weekly sessions, information from the textbooks, everything you've gotten from the class, you will use to then answer those 8 questions. You and your instructor can then compare your 8 answers on the pre-instructional to your 8 answers on the post-instructional and really get a good empirical sense of how much better you're able to answer those questions after spending time in that budgeting course. So every one of those 5 core courses should have a pre and a post-instructional assignment. If you look at the syllabus for a course and it's not clear to you what assignments are pre and post-instructional, reach out to the instructor and ask the instructor, because every instructor should have pre and post-instructional assignments in their core courses, with the exception of 500 and 697. So in part 2, you will take your pre and post-instructional assignments that you completed in budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods, and those assignments will then go into part 2 of your portfolio. You don't need to revise them. You can turn them in as you submitted them in the class. And so in the same format you submitted them, just put them in part 2. There are no approval sheets. There's no instructor approval. Just whatever you turned in goes into part 2 of your portfolio. And then part 3 of the portfolio will be those 5 cases that you completed in PPA 697 directed research. And again, there are no approval sheets. Those cases that you've submitted in 697, you just include those in part 3 of your portfolio. And that's it. Those are the 3 parts of the portfolio. It's a portfolio that you are building throughout your entire time in the MPA program. You start building it here in this 500 class with your initial skills self-assessment, and then you complete building it with that final skills self-assessment that you do after you've completed your 5 cases in 697. It's all done electronically now. In the past, we used to have paper binders, and so the office across the hall from where my office currently is was just packed full of binders. And we had like 10 years worth of portfolios that students never came back to pick up. And so obviously we're more of an electronic age now, and so everything's submitted electronically. You will submit your portfolio through OneDrive, and when I was chair, put together a step-by-step video of how to use OneDrive and how to submit your portfolio through OneDrive. I know you're probably a couple years away from doing this. You're just starting the program, so all these details you don't have to worry about right now. But when you do submit your portfolio, it'll be done electronically through OneDrive, when you will share a link with your 697 instructor. Your 697 instructor will then review your portfolio, basically to make sure all 3 of those parts are in there. They won't go through and grade anything or evaluate or revise anything. So just make sure you have all the 3 elements in there. When your instructor decides all 3 elements are in your portfolio, that instructor will then contact the PPA office and say, this student has cleared their portfolio requirement. And then the PPA office will contact Enrollment Services and clear that requirement from your transcript. Whenever your portfolio has been approved and cleared, you will see on your unofficial transcript at the bottom, you'll see a notation that says graduate project completed. Whenever you see the words graduate project completed, that means that Enrollment Services has noted that your portfolio has been approved by the department. But again, there are no approval forms that are required for any of this. You just submit it through OneDrive electronically to your 697 instructor. There are due dates for the portfolio. So if you're graduating in the fall, your portfolio would have to be turned in no later than December 1st. If you're graduating in the spring, it has to be turned in no later than May 1st. So those are the deadlines for the portfolio. For your 5 cases, when you're in 697, If you're graduating in the fall, your 5 cases would have to be submitted by November 15th. If you're graduating in the spring, they'd have to be submitted by April 15th. So the deadline for your 5 cases, 2 weeks before the deadline for your student learning portfolio. But again, I know you're ways away from that now, but just to put it on your radar that you're going to be building this portfolio throughout your time in the program. And again, to reiterate for part 2, make sure to reach out to your instructor if it's not clear, because sometimes instructors, I won't say they get lazy with it, but sometimes they're not terribly clear in their syllabus about what's the pre and what's the post instructional. So if it's not entirely clear, please do reach out to them and see what assignments they're using as pre and post instructional assignments. During my time as chair, I dealt with a lot of issues that to try and help people graduate, because CSULB is a bureaucracy, and as any large bureaucracy, it's got a lot of rules and a lot of regulations, and sometimes we can run afoul unintentionally of some of those rules and regulations. So here are some important policies that I found in my time as chair that everyone needs to be aware of. The one I've already mentioned is that you have to advance candidacy at least one semester before the semester you are graduating. I've had several students in my tenure who didn't do that, and so they're graduating and they file a petition to graduate, and Enrollment Services says you never advanced the candidacy. That would then create an exception to policy, and that becomes very difficult. So make sure you advance at least one semester before you are graduating. Again, it's good practice to advance as soon as you can after you've completed 6 units in the program. The university has a 7-year rule that from the time you enter your program, you then have 7 years to finish your degree. Now, if you exceed those 7 years, then your courses then basically become unusable. But every department has the ability to revalidate classes, and every department has its own revalidation policy. Here in our department, our revalidation policy is that any course that is less than 10 years old, we will revalidate to use towards your 39-unit degree requirement. Any case that's more than 10 years old cannot be revalidated. So, say you enter this semester and then life gets in the way, and you get to fall of 2031 and you still have not graduated, and so you reapply to the program, you would still be able to use those courses that you took this semester because they're less than 10 years old. So we would just automatically revalidate those. Dr. Matthews would send a letter to Enrollment Services saying we're revalidating these courses for the student and you are good to go. But if it's more than 10 years from when you were initially admitted to the program, then you would have to retake those courses because they would have expired. This next bullet point is a really important one because I've had a lot of students who have run afoul of this. The university requires that from the time that you matriculate, from the time that you join the program, that you're admitted to the program, you must maintain continuous enrollment in every fall and spring semester until you graduate. Now, you're not required to be enrolled in the winter or the summer. Winter and summer are special sessions. They are run by the College of Professional and Continuing Education. They have a different fee structure, a different registration process. They're a different animal altogether. You're encouraged to register in the summer and the winter to get through your program quicker, but you are not required to. You have to be enrolled in the fall and the spring until you graduate. Even if it's for 1 unit of Graduate Studies 700, you have to be enrolled. If for some reason life intervenes and you're going to have to take a semester off, you'll need to complete a education leave form. Education leave form is available on the Enrollment Services website. You don't have to have departmental approval for it anymore. You can just go on the Enrollment Services website, fill out the education leave form, and that stops the clock from ticking. So if a spring semester you can't enroll in courses, take an education leave, then it won't be counted against you, and then you can start taking courses again in the fall without having to reapply. If you do not do an education leave form and you're not enrolled in either a fall or a spring semester, then the university considers that to be a break in enrollment. They will then require you to reapply to the university and reapply to the program. So it's very important to maintain that continuous enrollment or complete an education leave form. It's also very important that you maintain good academic standing. Good academic standing is considered a cumulative GPA of at least 3.0. If you fall below a cumulative GPA of 3.0, then you'll go on academic probation, and the university is changing the terminology. They have a new policy for it that they're implementing this year to enhance student retention. But in essence, it would be an academic probation. You then have 2 semesters in order to bring your GPA up to 3.0. If you do not, then you would be subject to academic disqualification. And again, this is going to be changing over the next few months, and the Academic Senate is looking at changing these procedures. But as of now, you would be subject to academic disqualification. Academic disqualification is something done by the university, not done by the department. So it's kind of an automatic thing that the university does. So just to avoid this, keep your GPA over 3.0, which means that if you do get a C in one class, you'll have to get an A in another class to balance it out so you have that 3.0 cumulative GPA. If you need to avail yourself of it, there is a grade appeals process available to students. If you feel that a grade was assigned in an arbitrary, capricious, or prejudicial manner, you can file a grade appeal. Do know that with grade appeals, though, that the burden of proof is on the student, and that the grade appeals process assumes that the grade that was assigned by the instructor was an accurate grade. So what you would have to prove is that the grade was arbitrary, capricious, or prejudicial. If you do find yourself in the situation of needing to do a grade appeal, your first point of contact should be Dr. Butts as the department chair. You can contact Dr. Butts. He can provide you with a copy of the grade appeals policy. It's essentially a 2-step process, an informal and a formal process. The informal process, he will refer you back to the instructor to have an informal discussion with the instructor to see if you and the instructor can come to an agreement. If you cannot come to an agreement, then it shifts to the formal stage, and then you would file a formal grade appeal through the department chair. But the whole grade appeals process flows through the department chair. So he would be your one point of contact, Dr. Butts. And then also remember, please, as you fill out your advancement to candidacy form, all core courses must be completed before you can register for 697. So make sure when you list your semester and year on your advancement form, the semester and year for all your core courses occur before the semester and year you've listed for PPA 697. I think those are just some of the important policies that I have found in my experience that it's good to reiterate, because those are some of the policies that sometimes people miss, and they requires the department chair and the graduate advisor to go through and kind of untangle things. So, abiding by those policies will help you progress through the program as cleanly and easily as possible. Do you have any programmatic questions based upon what we've talked about tonight and what was talked about by Dr. Matthews in the orientation? Let me share another set of slides with you if it's still here. Oh, it has disappeared. Okay. Let me do it this way. Let me share out my screen, and let's stop this. Okay. Let me just stop the sharing. Let me go and open up the one they want to share. Now I think it's important that we talk a little bit about the mission and the goals of the program. Again, we are in a situation here where we are going through reaccreditation. So I think it's important for you to be aware of what the program is all about, the mission of the program, and some of the values that underlie that mission. So every NASPA accredited program needs to have a mission statement. And we revised our mission statement as we were putting our self-study together last year. And so the mission statement we currently have as a program is the following. The mission of the MPA program in the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration. And I should note, you probably already know this, but our department is called a Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration. Even though we're called a center, we are an academic department. It's just whenever the department was formed back in 1973, they decided to use the term graduate center, but we are an academic department. So the MPA program in the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration, our mission is to educate and graduate a diverse student population And we are fortunate to have one of the most diverse student populations of any MPA program in the country, with the professional competencies necessary for leadership, policy, and management roles in the public service and in community-based and nonprofit organizations, both within the Los Angeles metropolitan area and the nation. Through the promotion of excellence in professional public service, research, and education, the center is an active partner with the public and nonprofit agencies within its service area. That mission is supported by our public service values, and we revised our public service values last year. Every accredited MPA program must have articulated public service values, and these are ours. Enhancing diversity in the faculty and in our student population. Now, again, we have a very diverse student population, but for years we did not have a very diverse faculty. We have been making strides in that regard recently. Our last 2 hires have greatly increased the diversity of our faculty. Every year, Dr. Butts puts in a request for a new faculty hire, and the primary purpose of that faculty hire is, again, to further diversify our faculty. And so with our recent retirements and new hiring coming on board, we are far more diverse faculty than we were even 6 years ago. Embracing diversity in our teaching. Faculty members need to demonstrate how they embrace diversity in their classrooms. We will talk in this class a lot about the value of social equity and social justice as one of the underlying values of the field of public administration. And we'll talk about that as we talk about the differences between public and private sectors. Promoting the public interest, which is obviously a goal of or a value of every MPA public affairs program. Ethical behavior, this is why we sprinkle ethics into our entire core curriculum. Integrity goes hand in hand with ethics. Social justice, as I mentioned, social justice, social equity are 2 major values of public administration, and we emphasize those in our courses. You'll get that not only in this course, you'll get that in the distribution of resources in the budgeting course. You'll get that in terms of the management of human resources in 577. You'll get that with organization theory and behavior in all of our core courses. And then obviously professional competence. Our accrediting body, NASPA, requires that all accredited programs must teach students 5 core competencies. And every student that leaves a NASPA accredited program must leave with 5 core competencies. The first competency looks at the ability to lead and manage. The second competency looks at the ability to articulate a distinct public sector perspective. The third competency is to be able to analyze, think critically, solve problems, and make decisions. The fourth competency is to participate in and contribute to the public policy process. And the fifth competency is to be able to effectively communicate with a diverse workforce and citizenry. So those are 5 core competencies that we have to demonstrate to NASPA that we have integrated within our core courses. And so what you will see is that in a lot of your syllabi for your core courses, you will see those core competencies listed within the syllabi for your courses. So when I teach the budgeting course primarily emphasizes the lead and manage competency, as well as the analyze, synthesize, make decisions, and think critically competency. So it's competency 1 and 3 that you'll get primarily from your budgeting course. And you'll see that we have that throughout our entire core curriculum. So those are the competencies, the professional competencies that you should have when you leave the MPA program. So as I said, we are at an important juncture right now in our NASPA reaccreditation. NASPA accredits programs for 7 years, and our 7-year accreditation ends this June. Dr. Butts and I and other faculty members put together a self-study that was submitted last August to kick off our reaccreditation process. And we have a site visit team that has been assigned to us that will be coming to campus the first week in March. I believe it's March 8th through 10th. They're going to come to do a 3-day site visit. As part of that site visit, they will probably be meeting with students. And so you might get an email from Kathy Allen asking for your availability between March 8th and March 10th. to meet with our site visit members. The site visit members meet with students, they meet with faculty, both full-time and part-time. They meet with our advisory board, they meet with our community partners, they meet with the equity office, they will meet with college and university administration. They will meet with all of our relevant key stakeholder groups to collect information to then put in the report back to NASPA to inform our accreditation efforts. We have been continuously accredited by NASPA since, I believe, 1987 or 1988. We are one of the first MPA programs to get NASPA accreditation, and we've been NASPA accredited ever since. So I don't think there's any issues with us getting reaccredited, but just to let you know, we are at that point in that accreditation cycle. So don't be surprised if you get an email from Kathy asking for your participation in these focus groups. Yeah, go ahead, Luciano.
Thanks for all the information, Professor. I have a question about accreditation and learning the process of it. Which of these classes might elaborate on those best practices for us to better prepare when our institutions actually get accredited? I know where I work, I hear the language, but it's hard to get involved because only a selected handful of people do it. But is there like a class here that might help us further understand that process and what it really means?
There's not really a class that looks at accreditation or looks at these, the standards of accreditation. It's more that the competencies that you will get throughout all of your core courses. The way in which our accreditation body works is that they have 7 main standards that they look at for every program as they go through accreditation. The first standard, standard 1, looks at the mission and the values of the program. And so that's what I've introduced you to tonight, our mission and our values. The mission was informed last year through focus groups with students and faculty and all of our key stakeholders. So all of our stakeholders contributed to the creation of that mission. Section 2, standard 2, looks at the administrative capacity of the department, looking at, does the full-time faculty have program governance? Do they have governance over the operation of public affairs education at the university? So it looks at things such as, do you have a department chair, and does that department chair get compensation? Do you have a graduate advisor, and does that graduate advisor get compensation? Those types of issues. Looks at your staffing and whether or not you have full-time staff. And we have 2 full-time staff members, Kathy Allen Zeiss and Geraldine Miano. And those are our 2 full-time staff members that support the MPA program. Section standard 3 looks at faculty diversity and the strides we've made in faculty diversity, looks at qualification of faculty, the types of research faculty do, types of courses that they teach, how connected they are in terms of their community service. Standard 4 looks at students, and it looks at student diversity, which again, we score very well on, and looks at support services for students. And so, for instance, what happens if a student does fall below a cumulative GPA of 3.0? What types of support services are provided? They will meet with Dr. Matthews or meet with Dr. Butts and put together a schedule that will help them remediate their GPA deficiency. We have a student association that formed a few years ago that offers social events to help students become better connected to the program and to the department. We are offering a series of colloquia beginning this semester. We'll have people coming to campus, experts coming to campus, and guest speakers coming to campus that will help students connect with people in management positions. And so we have city managers and county managers and managers of storm sewer systems and you name it, water divisions, who come to campus frequently to meet with students. And so those are some of the supports that we have in terms of students in Standard 4. Standard 5 looks at assessment and those 5 competencies I mentioned before, and we have a very rigorous assessment system that we have been using since 2007. I created my first time when I was chair. So we usually do very well in terms of showing how we communicate those competencies to students. Standard 6 looks at resources. It looks at how stable your resources are. And we are very lucky that our distance learning program brings in a great deal of revenue that can help support our stateside program. And so we tend to have a lot of that self-support revenue that a lot of other departments on campus just simply do not have. And then standard 7 is communication, where NASPO looks at the website, looks at the information that's being provided on the website. Do you provide employment statistics, which we do? Do you provide information on your retention in terms of how well you retain students from when they enter the program to when they leave the program? And we have all that provided then on our website. So it's really those 7 standards that will be judged on not only by the site visit team, but by the accreditation commission that is part of NASPO. There's a commission called the Commission on Peer Review and Accreditation, otherwise known as COPRA. And it's COPRA, that commission, that makes the final accreditation decision. I was a COPRA commissioner for 3 years. You can only serve 1 3-year term. I served 1 3-year term about a decade ago. And I served as a liaison to a lot of other programs that were going through accreditation. The past 12 years, I've also served as a chair of site visit teams going around the country and doing this type of accreditation work for other programs. So in comparison to other programs, I can tell you from my experience, our program is very well situated for reaccreditation. We have very few issues to work on, and I think we're in a much more solid position than the vast majority of programs that I've worked with over the past 12 years. But that's kind of the accreditation process and how accreditation works. Again, from a student perspective, the important part is really that standard 5 and those core competencies, and seeing those core competencies and where those core competencies occur throughout the core and the elective curriculum. And so I think we're doing a much better job now as faculty of including those core competencies in our syllabi and really being very explicit about which competencies apply in which of our core courses. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I've been working accreditation for years, and so anyone asks me about accreditation, and you end up getting a very long-winded answer from me because I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, I think we're very well suited. But it would be great if you can participate, especially being a new student in the MPA program. It would be good to have some representation from new students in those focus groups whenever the site visit team comes. But Kathy will be sending out those emails sometime probably in mid-February or so, asking for availability so you can actually participate in this accreditation process. So again, it's a very important juncture right now, and I have full faith that we will get another 7-year reaccreditation through the year 2030. So I led the last 2 accreditation cycles. Now that Dr. Butts is chair, I'm glad to take a little step back and let him lead this accreditation cycle. And he's put together a very strong self-study, and it was a self-study that was very well received by COPRA and NASPA. So I think we're in very good stead. Let's see, I think that's about it for the information I have for you for tonight. We've talked about the course, we've talked about the course requirements, we talked about the program requirements, we talked about the mission and the value of the programs, and we talked about where we are in accreditation, just to let you know what will be going on over the next couple of months. Once that site visit team comes and goes, then after March 10th, everything gets kind of quiet in terms of the accreditation front. And then it's just a matter of waiting until June or July whenever COPRA makes its final accreditation decision. But we've always gotten reaccredited, and we've always gotten reaccredited without monitoring. So I'm sure that's going to happen again this year. So that's all I have for you. Are there any other questions before we call it an evening? It's about 6:15, so everyone good? Okay. If you have any questions about the course or the syllabus between now and next Wednesday, please feel free to send me an email. Let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Remember to please post your brief introduction between now and when we get together again. And then next Wednesday, we will start off class with Kelly Janicek doing the library tutorial. Then we'll take a break, and then we'll talk about American government and probably continue that information then into week number 3. So it's nice seeing everyone. I look forward to getting to know you and working with you over the next few weeks. Let's see, we've got something in chat. So let me open the chat up. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I'll talk to you all next week. I'll have this recording up on our Canvas site by tomorrow morning, and you can then review it at your leisure. So thanks, everyone. Have a great remainder of your week.
Thank you.